It's like a nightmare.
Last night?
My life.
Are you scared?
I get scared.
Of what?
My parents, my sister, you. I feel like something's gonna happen. And if I scratch the surface, there'll be something terrible underneath.
How do you like your tea? Cream? Sugar? Or do you want me to pee in it?
You're a class act, Clarissa.
Hello, and welcome to Comic Book Bears Presents The Bear Cave of Terror. I'm your hairy, heavy homo and horror fan host, Steve Morey. Each week, here in the Bear Cave, I invite a horror-loving guest who brings with them one of their favorite scary movies. They can be classic, gory, trashy, obscure, well-known, squishy, or something still banned in Britain. In other words, a thrilling work of cinematic terror that we think you might enjoy. In each episode, we'll dig into the flesh and bone of the film, highlighting our favorite scary moments, as well as stories and details from beyond the screen, all while our guest imparts their deep and possibly concerning love for this week's frightful vision unto you, our dear listener. And with me today, for the first time, is Mr. Joshua Pangborn. Josh, welcome to the Bear Cave of Terror.
I am delighted and terrified to be here, so...
Oh, why, thank you. And Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself, because it's your first time, so tell our listeners what brings you to horror, or what brought horror to you? What got you into horror as a genre?
So weirdly enough, I would say Comedy Central. It's very absurd, I know. But as a child, I was very lucky that I grew up with a family who didn't believe in censoring me for movies and everything. But at the same time, I'm a bear of a certain age, and that means that we didn't have streaming services. Even I grew up in a small town where they didn't even have cable at the time when I was growing up. So while I was able to watch any R-rated movie that I wanted to, I grew up with a mother who didn't really like horror, and so therefore we did not get to rent horror movies from the video store. Yes, video store, because again, I am a bear of a certain age. So when we did eventually get cable in our small little hamlet, I was able to see Comedy Central, and one of the movies they constantly replayed on Comedy Central was An American Werewolf in London. For whatever reason, that is, as far as I recall, my first probably authentic horror movie that I recall seeing. Certainly I saw scary-ish films, or moments of films with scariness in them, like The Great Mouse Detective and things like that. I don't know why that's the one I picked out of all Disney movies, but that's the one I picked.
It was pretty dark. It was a pretty dark movie.
It was.
Yeah.
So my very first, as far as I recall, my very first authentic horror movie was An American Werewolf in London. And it was delightful in that it mixed genre and tone, and also had an amazing special effects makeup process going on in there. And I guess from there, I just sort of, when I was getting a little older, and again, I was relatively young here, but as I started to get older and they had DVDs now, we've reached that part of my timeline and the world. I started to get horror movies, and I started buying them. The first 2 DVDs I ever bought, one was Dogma, which is not a horror movie, but the other one was Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. And I never saw it before I bought it, but that was the very first horror DVD I think I ever bought. And then from there, I just sort of kept buying all these DVDs that I was like, maybe I'll watch this one, maybe I'll watch that one, and I don't know anything about one, but it looks interesting. Or David Boreanaz is in Valentine, I'll go get Valentine, because I love Buffy and Angel. And I mean, Valentine was also a really fun movie, so that was a lucky result in my end. But sometimes I got movies I was like, well, I really shouldn't have spent money on that one, but that's okay. And I started to fall in love with horror. I mean, I love movies in general. I'm a movie person. I make movies, so I really like movies. But the genre that I gravitate towards the most is horror, and I think it's because I'm able to express myself in ways that you can't in other movies and other genres. You can be grounded but also ridiculous, and you can tackle stories and storylines that are both fanciful and also really topical and really necessary to confront, and be as subversive as you want. You can do that in comedies. There are comedies that do that. You can do that with dramas, but it's not always the same way. And there's a certain formula to those that you sort of have to continue with most of the time. Whereas with horror, I mean, you can have a movie about queer characters who also happen to be vampire zombies. Not vampire zombies. That would be silly. Vampires and zombies, I guess. Although now I have to make a vampire zombie movie, so there we go.
Yeah, there actually is. There's vampire zombies from space. Vampire zombies from space.
Of course they're
just
from
released
space.
this
Well,
year.
of course they're from space. Anyway, that's a very lengthy trip to my horror journey started on Comedy Central. There we go.
No, but I mean, you're right. Like, horror has the ability, filmmakers have the ability using horror to like really get into the viscera, literally sometimes and figuratively, of course, of certain topics, of certain fears, of certain traumas, and work through them in an interesting way. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason why a lot of people love horror. And they also love horror because it can be really gross. And who doesn't like being like grossed out? Which kind of brings us to today's movie that we're talking about, that you suggested that we watch. And that is the movie Society from 1989, originally, when it was first shown at Cannes, I think. Directed by Brian Yuzna. And then it just kind of was shelved for a few years before it finally got a release in like 92, 93 in the US. So interesting path that it took, and probably for very good reason.
See, I'm confused why you think this movie is gross. I mean, it seems like a pretty standard romance for me. I mean,
yeah, it is, boy meets girl. Girl has very strange mother. Girl wants to, pee in his drink. Something, just really interesting things. And then there's a big party at the end.
It's a lot of family love is really what it is in the
Lots
end.
of, it is about family. It's about family. And community and society.
Yes. I remember, I didn't actually see this movie until probably like 4 or 5 years ago at the most. But I remember every time I went to a video store and I wandered by the horror, because again, I loved horror, but we didn't get to rent it because of my mother and father. I distinctly remember the box for the movie always there. Like, it's a very distinct poster. And so I remember that. And I always remember it there. But I was always like, what is this movie? I mean, I can't rent it anyway, but why would I want to rent this? It doesn't look very scary or interesting in that sense. So, and then silly Josh, up until 5 years ago, I didn't realize what I was missing out on, which was a story about family and society.
Yes. And I love how you mentioned the poster or the box art for this. And that's kind of, because I kind of grew up in the same era. So I have those memories of walking through the video store. And it's that, just that image that you walk past when you're going through the different sections that has to grab your attention. And a lot of movies, especially horror movies, had this way of really enticing a person to pick up the box and see what this thing is about. I mean, there's some really great box art and gimmicks and things. I think we talked about it on this podcast for Frankenhooker, being able to pick up the box and have it say "one a day," really loudly in the video store. Always a pleaser. Or things like Black Roses with like the texture on the outside and like the very strange image on the other side of the, demonic person. The box art for this it's pretty simple. It's like a, fancy looking debutante pulling away their face in a way that's like they're pulling off a mask and there's just sort of goo behind it. I think that being a really big factor back in the VHS days, especially, but I guess also, when you're going out and renting stuff, DVDs and whatnot. But I also purchased a lot of VHS and DVDs just by box art alone a lot of times, and sometimes regretted it massively.
There was one that I got, and I don't know did you ever see the Reefer Madness musical?
Not the musical, no.
So the Reefer Madness musical, when you buy the DVD, I don't know if you can anymore, because physical media doesn't It doesn't exist.
What is that?
What is physical media?
Who is
Again,
she?
they're of a certain age here. Physical media is a thing that you would purchase and then own physically. So hence the name. But the DVD for Reefer Madness musical, when you bought it and you opened it up, it was scented, so it smelled like brownies, because it's obviously a musical about marijuana, and one of the things they do in it is make pot brownies. So when you opened it up, it smelled like brownie. And so there again, talking about these little gimmicks to get you to buy things, that's one of them right there. So
Yeah. And for Society, again, because it kind of had a period of time where it was really obscure. It premiered in 1989 in Cannes. It hit the festival circuit and then went away. I think a lot of times, and Brian Yuzna has mentioned this before in interviews, people in the U.S. didn't know how to market it. So a distribution company was like, yes, it's a horror movie, but it's a very particular type of horror movie, and we're not sure if we're going to find an audience for it. And it took several years before it had a limited theatrical run and then was dumped onto VHS. But at least it got out there.
yes,
And it pretty quickly garnered a very small but loyal cult fan base. And eventually it was re-released, I believe, either Arrow Video. I'm not sure which video company, but they did re-release it on DVD, on disc for the first time, I want to say probably about less than 10 years ago. So up until that point, it was really hard to find unless you had a VHS copy. But then on DVD, it was now available. People could go to Best Buy, if you remember going to Best Buy to buy DVDs.
I've heard of those as well. So.
Or Media Play, which also no longer exists. And, pick it off the shelf and go like, what the hell is this? And actually, what the hell is this movie? What's if you could summarize it, what would you sort of say this movie is about? I mean, you could get really into detail if you want. We don't care about spoilers here, but if you were to tell somebody, okay, hey, I just saw this movie. Let me tell you about it. What would you say to them about what Society is about?
That's a tough one. Because and I love that about this. I actually really enjoy that it isn't. I think the reason a lot of people had trouble marketing a movie like this is because for so many people who are not horror fans, horror means one thing, and that's slasher.
Right.
And I mean, I love a slasher. Do not get me wrong, but horror is so many other things, and that's the hard part with this, I think. So Society, I think it's a satirical look at the way the people in power retain power at the expense of the people below them. I think that's how, because I'm somebody who tries not to give spoilers to people when I tell them about a movie. So I think that's what I would say for somebody who has never seen it before. That's probably what I would say.
Yeah, I mean that is and again that's not even being judicious. I mean that is really kind of what the theme of this movie, like what the heart of this movie is a young man sort of figuring out, and he is privileged. This is the main character in this is from an extremely wealthy family. He's growing up in Beverly Hills. He goes to Beverly Hills Academy or something. Like he's a jock. He's popular. He has tons of money. I mean, he's got a fancy Jeep that he drives all over the place and, whatever. But he feels different. Something is off between his relationship with him and his family that he can't really put his finger on. And not just that, but other people that surround him. And so this is an insider who is your main character. He's an outsider in very different ways than what we'd normally see in a horror movie, an 80s horror movie outsider. He's not a nerd. Doesn't have like a couple very small friends that he cowers with away from all the popular kids. I mean, he is one of the popular kids. He's got a cheerleader girlfriend. He's running for class president. He's got tons of money. Doesn't need for anything. But something's really wrong, and he can't put his finger on it. And through the course of the movie, is confronted with many things that back up that paranoia, that fear. As the saying goes, like it's not really paranoia if they are all out to get you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what happens in this movie. It starts off subtle. And then gets more and more
Yeah.
wild. Yeah. But I think probably the biggest twist is the body horror part because, you know, and we kind of talked about this pre-show where there was originally a direction that this film was going to go that wasn't as shocking. Woody Keith was the person who wrote the original script, and it came to Brian Yuzna, the director of such crazy, horrific, fair type films like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, body horror film, 100%. And this movie he directed, I think this is the movie that he directed right before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was this one.
And Disney still hired him. So
Disney still hired him, probably because they were like, yes, we want that kind of sentimentality in this film. He gets society. But yeah, I mean, Brian Yuzna got this script and was like, this is a great idea, but I don't think it goes far enough. Because in the original script, yes, you know, the main character, he's worried about his family not fitting in with his family, not fitting in with like the other wealthy people that his family surrounds him with. And it turns out that they are all part of an evil cult, a blood sacrifice cult. And they are looking for poor people to sacrifice in order to get the idea of power. Like, this is how the powerful stay in power, by sacrificing those who are less fortunate. Kind of shocking. Kind of like, okay. But also a little bit, you know, not necessarily memorable. Brian Yuzna was like, I like it, but I don't love it. But this is what I think we could do so that we can all love it. And so he called up his buddy, Screaming Mad George, who's known for very interesting and very creative practical effects, and was like, what can we do to make this even crazier?
And I think they figured it out. So
they got that formula. It involves a lot of corn syrup, apparently.
And latex. Lots of latex.
Lots of latex.
Much latex.
So much latex, so much slime. But yeah, so, you know, going through a lot of this, I think that probably, I'd say maybe the first half to first 2/3 of this movie are pretty much like an 80s suspense thriller. You've got, gosh, I keep saying the main character, but it's Bill Whitney, who is the son. He's a senior in high school. He's really popular. He's got a bunch of friends, got the, you know, blonde cheerleader girlfriend, but he's still not the richest guy. That's a Ted Ferguson. Ted Ferguson's kind of like top of the heap. He's like even more popular, and he's a little too much for Bill. Like, Bill doesn't really fit in. Bill's sister, however, seems to be kind of all part of that group. So it's like, well, why is my sister that much higher on the social ladder than I am, even though we're both we should be equal? And his sister's hot. She's already dated people before, although her ex-boyfriend seems a little creepy, breaking into her room, stalking her in her closet like a creeper.
And doesn't look like the type she would have dated. So
yeah, he looks a little bit like he's a little bit meaty, you know, a little bit,
he's 80s
a little bit soft.
So
he's 80s thick. Yeah, so he's like, you know, he's like a size 4.
Exactly.
He's like,
he wears
oh
34.
So big.
If you're
He's so big. Like, oh my God, I think he wears an XL. There's a lot of little clues here. His parents don't really approve of some of his friends. They seem to dote like crazy on his sister, like to a very creepy extent. Like, they're always like hanging all over.
They're
like,
very affectionate physically with her.
Very affectionate. And then for him, they're just sort of like, you're good. Go off, see your psychologist if you're having a problem.
Yeah, he's got a basketball game, and they don't care about that. But they plan a debutante ball really for their daughter on the same night as his big basketball game. So
you don't need our support. You're good anyway. Like, I guess, but you know, what kid doesn't want a little bit of recognition from their folks? And so he's kind of feeling left out. He's feeling pushed out of his family, and he tells his psychologist or psychiatrist that his parents have gotten for him, and his psychiatrist is like, you're just making stuff up, you're just hallucinating, it's all whatever.
But look how progressive the movie is, though, because they show how it's good for people to go to therapists in the 80s.
Right. It is. It actually, that is an interesting message. But it's like, but it also at the same time, it's done a little bit well, the rich, of course he can see a therapist.
Yeah,
Of course
yeah.
he can see somebody.
And of course the therapist is evil, but I mean, that's another story.
Yeah, very evil and, doesn't believe a word he says and kind of gaslights him the whole time and all of that. But there is something there where this is I would say an unconventional hero, an unconventional main character, because again, he's not like the usual horror movie sort of protagonist where he's kind of an outsider. This guy is like, he's got everything going on for him. The only people he's really outside of is his folks. And it's like, hey,
And
he's got all this money. Why does he need him?
He's kind of unlikable, especially at the beginning.
He's a bit whiny. He is a bit whiny.
He's a bit whiny and also kind of a little bit of a bully to his only friend, a little bit. So there's something about him that is not particularly like, I want to support him right at first. And it's just also really, I think it's because we're conditioned to view his role as the bad person in the movie. Whereas somebody like Milo, the poor little nerd that he's running against on student council, is who would be usually cheering for. So
usually, yeah, exactly. You would be like, oh, this Milo kid, he's smart. He's kind of not as cool as everybody else. Like, this should be the guy that we're rooting for. Like, why should we be rooting for the guy who has, on the surface, everything? And through the course of the movie, obviously, things get revealed. There are some glimpses of very strange, gross things that are not necessarily expected. Generally, before we get into like the final reveal of this whole thing, characters, they're all weird. They're all weird in this movie.
So weird. Everyone's just slightly off.
Yeah.
And it feels like everyone is in a slightly different movie at times.
It does. So there is like his girlfriend is the perfect 80s crimped crazy perm, bunny sweaters, trapper keepers, whatever. And also a whiny bitch. No shade on the whiny bitches of the world, but she really is. But he has the eyes for this other girl who's one of the rich popular girls who's kind of like the next level up. Played by Devin DeVasquez, who used to be a Playboy bunny. This I think was her first I think this was one of her first like main Hollywood kind of roles, playing Clarissa, who is just this super mega hottie, and he's like, "Oh my god, I want Clarissa."
But interestingly, when they introduce her, she also feels like a bit of an outsider. Like, she's not out at the beach. She's not with everybody else.
Right.
She almost feels like she's the bad girl a little bit, and then at the party when they first really officially meet, it's like, oh, okay, never mind. She's rich and popular. Okay,
she's rich and popular, and also a total horn dog. Like,
very much so.
She's like, I like you. Let's go and sleep together. Like, right now. Like, I want you now.
5 minutes after they say hello. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like, hey, we haven't said 2 words to each other ever. My house is that way. Let's go. This will be great. This will be a lot of fun. And yeah, she's very strange. Like, she is in maybe a teen sex comedy kind of way. Like, she's the experienced hot girl who's going to, initiate him into the world of like the sexually fulfilled, studs. And it doesn't go that way because she's weird. She is weird. And her mother is amazing, but also very, very weird in a very different kind of way. Pamela Matheson.
Yes.
And she gives this performance of like, I don't know how to describe it.
It's a completely different film. It's different. I mean, I sort of love that they just never explain why this woman is this way.
Even Clarissa says, "Mother, stop doing things that I don't like." Like stomping through rooms and grunting at people, I guess.
Eating people's hair.
Eating people's hair. This woman is just fantastic in how bizarre she is. And again, she is this wealthy top member of society.
Somehow.
So it's like, how is this person? And this is, I think, where the movie starts to show some of its cards. Like, okay, so we've got all these people that are clearly like, they're smarter than everybody else. They're richer than everybody else. They're all kind of assholes. So yeah, they belong like high elites, elites of our society. But what's with this one? This Mrs. Carlin is kind of different. And she almost doesn't seem human.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we start playing with these things. And that's where the ideas of like, it's not just conspiracy. His parents and his sister are part of some like weird sex cult, which it kind of sounds like it is in one part of the movie. But something else is going on here. And this is where Yuzna and screamingmadgeorge really, I think, hit their stride.
Mm-hmm.
In like the little pieces, the little tiny reveals. There's a part where Jenny, the sister, is in the shower, and he kind of glimpses her in the shower in an impossible stance, let's say. Like how
Yes.
limbs and heads don't face those directions normally, or different directions that way.
But I will say it's a very effective way to wash if you could do that.
Oh, 100%. Also, it is kind of creepy because it's creepy on him, too. It plays on the idea. So, like, we already know that Bill is seeing a therapist. Bill has hallucinations. Bill has crazy dreams. Bill wakes up holding a knife in the middle of the night. So maybe he's unreliable. Maybe, he's seeing things. And also, why is he watching his sister in the shower? Like, that's gross and weird.
That's also a huge thing right there. It's also like
not likable kind of activity right there. But there's more and more keeps popping up. He finds the nerdy guy at some point. He finds him in the middle of the woods in a car with his throat cut, thinking that he's been murdered. And then he shows up the next day, like everything's fine. And so things just sort of keep happening around him that seem to indicate that he's lost it. But we know horror movies and we're following along with it. And this is not Jacob's Ladder. This is very, very different. And it's very 80s. And you know that, like, okay, it's not that he's being an unreliable narrator. He is clearly being set up. Then we've got the finale. So should we dive into it? Literally.
Well, let's dive into this.
Take those clothes off. Just literally go in. Oh boy. Okay. So the climax of society, where society climaxes. I think this is the part of the movie, and this is, I think, probably the thing that really cemented its cult status. Is the reveal of all of this is that all of the rich elites are sort of a parallel species. They're not human, but they've been around humans and they've been part of human society forever, just basically always at the top of society. And the reason they are at the top of the society is because they basically feed off of the lower classes and put themselves in those positions. They keep, they know who they know who they know, and everybody's at the top of the heap, and they stay there. And they like to feed as a group. So
it's a family eating, family dining.
It is a family affair. And yeah, so they bring poor Billy in. They've already falsified his records so that he's now been declared dead at the local hospital. So he shows up, gets captured by some people, and brought in, revealed to all of the rich members of society. There's this huge party that's being thrown at his house. His parents are presenting him to society to be consumed. And thankfully, he gets a little bit of a reprieve because his sister's ex-boyfriend, his sister's ex-boyfriend.
Not that progressive.
That would be progressive. That does not happen here. Although there is some kind of like weird sexual smushery. But it still remains very, very hetero, sort of.
Well, I guess not with mom and Jenny.
No, not with Mom and Jenny. That's one of my favorite parts. But basically, they demonstrate what society, and they keep talking about being a contribution to society. What they mean is being being a food source.
Mm-hmm.
The wealthy elites, including the local judge, basically they strip to their skivvies and just descend upon this poor gentleman who's still alive. And they start melting into him. sucking his fluids, his bones, marrow, just liquefying him from the inside out. And the judge at one point, he goes in deep.
Mm.
And, I think you've heard the term being worn like a glove. This one, oh, the hand goes all the way up.
There are a lot of people who took lessons from that in the back rooms of the Eagle. So,
Oh yeah, I'm sure like this inspired quite a bit of fetish work at some point. But in here it's presented as horror, and it really is. It's funny in a way though, because it is like they're hooting and hollering and just sort of like making comments and jokes about everything while they're literally absorbing this person from the inside out, and like
all of them are like falling apart. They're like goo. They're slimy. Like lips are stuck on flesh, and so like the lips are
yeah.
pulling. Horrific sight to see, and yet also they have a lot of fun with it, and they're enjoying themselves.
Oh yeah. And so there's a lot of, strange, body parts get twisted around and like half melted, people getting, merged together, melded together. So it's horrific. And the camera lingers. The camera lingers so much. So you see every little inch of what's happening in this mass of flesh. And, then Billy gets away, goes upstairs and encounters the other wonderful sight that this film is known for, and that is his parents and sister.
They've also learned how to merge in ways that no human should be able to do.
Yeah. The the father, who at one point Billy calls a butthead, does reveal himself to be physically put together in a way that makes that very literal. um,
Yes. And the sister and the mother are sort of one. Both have a pair of lips, where a woman would have two pairs of lips. So
yeah, and they're like, "Why don't you join us, Billy? Join us."
no.
No, I don't
Fortunately,
want
Billy could, because he is adopted, so it wouldn't be that gross for
Yeah,
Billy.
it's true. It would be fine. Billy and like his no, it would not. They would end up eating him.
Well, then again, Clarissa and Billy have
That
clearly
is
enjoyed
true.
themselves.
That is true. And Clarissa, of course, so it's revealed that Clarissa is one of these people. She is resisting the feeding, though. She doesn't like this whole idea. She's not part of this mindset. So she is the outsider. I mean, you touched on it before. Clarissa is probably the most interesting character in this entire movie. And she doesn't get a lot of screen time. But I think that she goes through the whole range of like emotional growth in this. Like first she's just kind of like a bored elitist socialite. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to be super slutty with like this weird kid. And then she's like, I'm now in love with this kid and I need to reject my heritage.
I would have liked at least like a small scene to get from that one part B to part C.
Yeah, she does kind of like skip a few steps there, but it's very she feels her feelings very strongly.
She does. She doesn't. I hope that she's prepared for the consequences of what she does. So
Yeah. Oh man. And and her mom shows up too, so that's always fun. She's fully supportive of her daughter. I'm sure
she is a very supportive mother.
Yeah.
She doesn't say much, but what she does is very supportive. So
Absolutely. But yeah, and of course, things happen. Billy gets away, and they ride off into the sunset. He, Clarissa, and his other good friend Milo, I believe, is the
yes, good
is
friend
the other
Milo,
normal friend. But yeah, I mean, there's
but first, Billy does get some revenge on the big mean rich kid,
he
Ted,
does.
because Ted is of course there, and Billy somehow figures out the one weakness that these very fleshy people have, which is to turn them inside out.
Yep. Yeah, he uses the glove of glory and pulls him inside out. And it's like, well, there goes his internship in Washington, D.C. That's just embarrassing, Ted Ferguson.
Oh, well, Ted.
Oh, well. but it's just it's funny in a way that it's shocking and gross and disgusting, horrific, but also I think the absurdity of it all kind of turns it on its head and makes it pretty fun. Like
It's such a fun movie.
it
It's
is.
horrific, but not in a way that and they didn't play it that way. That like they
Yeah.
clearly wanted you to find it absurd and yet revolting and all at once. It's a horror movie that doesn't need to scare you
Mm-mm.
in the way that a traditional horror movie would try to scare you. It scares
Yeah.
you in the sense of putting you in the place of somebody who should be part of society that feels outside of it.
Right. And somebody who is part of that society ends up leaving. And again, she's not the main character. Clarissa's character she's a side character at best, but she does join the rebel.
Mm-hmm.
In herself, she's the more rebellious one comparatively
Mm-hmm.
because she rejects everything that society has given her and her entire species has given her. All those advantages to leave it behind for this, kind of whiny kid.
Which, and to be fair to him, he is 17. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's who wasn't whiny when they were 17. I think if you look at it at one level where you don't look at it as specifically the movie about being rich society, but like society, just the word society meaning the world that we live in. This is very much about somebody who belongs to the world who doesn't feel connected to it. And in that, I think it's very much the queer experience because
Very much.
uh, for Billy and for Clarissa, like they live in this world that everything should be normal for them. There's really no reason for it not to be up until a
Mhm.
certain point. um, and yet you just don't feel part of it. And so there's something I don't know if this is what they intended with it, but there's something very, very much reflective of the queer youth upbringing in this movie. Uh
Yeah.
that
I
that I love about it. So
I 100% agree because even if you look at Billy being somebody who's from from privilege, from wealth, from the right side of the tracks, from all these things. And yet he still feels, and he has all of these things, reach those sort of goals for a 17-year-old in high school that matter.
mhm.
And yet he still feels disconnected. Something is wrong. He doesn't mesh well with those around him. And that is a very queer experience, because you have people who don't appear to be outsiders to others, but very much are outside themselves. It could be a trans experience too, and maybe that's more Clarissa's. She is a shape-shifting, creature of goo, but she's very much not attracted to that. Like that is not what she wants for herself. She's not what she wants in her life. She doesn't feel what's inside of her is not what she sees in society. I'm not like them. We are not like them, even though we should be, but I don't feel that way inside. And
Mhm.
I need to present that somewhere else and be different. And of course they leave. What do? They leave Burbank and go to West Hollywood. I guess it's
Well,
that's
they just leave. We don't know where
they
they
just
go. They
go.
ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it definitely does hit sort of a queer experience where there is a paranoia. Sometimes if you're in the closet, someone's going to find out that I'm wrong, I'm different, and I can't have that happen.
Or you don't even know why you're different or wrong or
Yeah,
what would
exactly. And it's like, well, why do I feel this way? And why do I feel so disconnected? I don't understand it. And, here's Billy going through that same thing. Of course, in most queer experiences, it isn't because everyone else is a shape-shifting, goo-sucking monster. Maybe not literally, but
I mean, speak for yourself. I grew up in a very small town and
those debutante balls were really gooey.
and they were. I never got to go to one. My dress was always in the shop. So
Oh, but yeah, I mean, is there? Could we see this more as like as a queer metaphor? I mean, obviously, Brian Yuzna is not. He's not queer, at least not openly queer, and Screaming Mad
mhm.
George is beyond definition.
I think that there's a very strong case to make for that. I also think there'll be people out there listening to this saying that I'm looking for a queer experience where there isn't one. But
Exactly. You know.
that's my role as a queer creator, is to find the queer connection. And I again, that's something about horror movies in general that
Mhm.
a queer audience is always going to have an experience with that other audiences who are not going to have, because we're
Yeah.
always going to see the queerness in something, and that's why queer people like horror in a way that so many other people do not. Is because
Yeah.
we see ourselves as the outsiders, and in this case, it quite literally is being an outsider from society. So
Yeah. And you know, in when it comes to body horror, I think body horror tends to be a really popular subgenre. Just because there are, you know, a lot of the queer experience could be, you know, my body is not
Mhm.
how I am supposed to be. So I need to get out of this body, or, you know, express myself in a way, modify myself in a way that is truer to what I should be.
I mean, it does look like it would be fun to be in the shunting, but
The shunting would be fun to.
I mean, not as a human, but
Mm. Yeah, specify here. Well, I mean,
clarify.
hey, some people are into vor, I guess.
That's
So, you
true.
know,
There are Vor fans out there, and I am not one of them, but
mm,
we know that there are some. So
yeah. So more power to them. Maybe they would like to be on the other end of the shunting. Um,
this is a great movie for Vor fans. Then there aren't
yes,
a
there
lot
you
of
go.
those out there, so this one, Vor fans, watch.
Exactly. And you know, overall, I have to say, like, in terms of you know, what's presented on screen, this is not a gory film. So, like,
It's
whatever
not.
we said, there's some blood in this movie, and I think it's like there's a part where the ex-boyfriend is presumably killed in a car crash, and there's just blood everywhere. But it turns out that it's all fake. That
Yeah, we don't
everything's
even
been
actually
fixed
see
for
a
this.
body. So I
We don't.
mean,
Yeah, we never see the body
we see we
until
see
he
a
shows up.
we see a blanket over a sheet over it. So
Yeah,
the most blood I think we see is when Martin is in the car and his throat is slit.
absolutely. That's probably the most. I would say, like, up to that point, probably the most disturbing thing that you get to see
And
until
actually,
the
in this
shunting.
movie, only two people actually die:
Right.
David, the ex-boyfriend,
David, the
and
ex-boyfriend.
Ted.
Yeah,
So, so this is actually a very low body count horror movie.
it is. It surprisingly is.
Maybe the cop that Mrs. Carlin plays with.
Right. Ooh. Maybe he
So she
gets
does pull
eaten.
him into the bushes, and we don't know what happens to him afterward.
Yeah. I mean, she does cough up some hair. Maybe
She
that might
does.
be
We've got 2 to 3 bodies in this
2 to
movie.
3 bodies in this movie. But overall, like, you know, one of the things I do like to ask guests on this is if there is a scary moment in the movie that really stuck with you, or, you know, a moment of tension, or a moment that really raised sort of the stress level. Um, do you have a moment like that in this movie?
I think uh I think there are probably 3 moments I can point to that would be that
Hmm.
way. One would be the shower scene where we see the sister twisted, because that is the first moment of real horror, I guess, the horror moment in the movie. The second would be the whole Martin sequence where Martin is
Right.
dead and then we see him the next day. So what is that whole sequence right there? I think is a little bit of a what is going on, WTF kind
Hmm.
of moment. But I
Yeah.
think the moment that would stand out the most for me is when the judge stands up after shunting with the ex-boyfriend, and he has the ex-boyfriend's birthmark on his face now. Because
Oh,
that,
yeah.
for all the silliness and the ridiculousness of the shunting, they've literally just consumed this person's entire being to the point that he now owns a trait from this person.
You can see what's happening. It's very
There's no
obvious.
questions about what's
There's
happening.
no questions like, oh yeah, there's his hand coming out of his eye. Like that.
They had the
Yeah.
budget, so
They had the budget for the goo. There is a point where Billy goes back to the house after he's sort of realized that everything's all screwed up and this is really bad. And it's more of like it's a repeat of the opening sequence in the film
Mhm.
where he's having a dream or a nightmare. And he goes to the kitchen to get a knife because he fears he's going to be attacked. And then the lights come on and it's his mother, who's like, "What are you doing, Billy? What are you doing with that knife?" Um, well, this is him going back into the darkened house, going to the kitchen, grabbing a knife to protect himself. And then the lights come on and everyone's there. and they grab him and they cover his head.
Mm.
And there's the nightmare. He's not waking up from a nightmare. He is in the nightmare, and it's not going to stop because what's supposed to happen after this is that he is then killed and consumed when everybody reveals exactly what they are to him.
There's something I like about that moment you just said that reminds me also about the box art that we talked about earlier. The fact that all of the horrible things in this movie happen in lighting, that in bright light, or
Yeah.
well lit spaces. Like it doesn't happen like in the dark, or because in theory, when the lights turn on, Billy should be safe at that moment because that's what happens in a horror movie. But this reverses that trope. The lights turn on, and he's actually more in danger than he's ever been before.
Right.
And again, the ex-boyfriend, in theory and ostensibly, dies in a car crash in the bright daytime. The sister is twisted in the bright sunlight of the shower. In general, most of the true horror elements of this are done in the daylight or done in well-lit spaces, which subverts the idea of what a horror movie traditionally does. So
yeah, there's no safety and security in the light in this case because the light is more or less used, operated, owned by the horror.
Society lives in the light, so
and even what they're doing is revealed very bright lit. So maybe sometimes when you are surrounded by dark in that basement, maybe it's not a good idea to see what's in there. So keep the light off.
and I mean that goes back to urban legends with the classic urban legend scene where she wakes up and it says, "It's a good thing you didn't turn on the light."
Yes. Which, like in a dorm room, and like her roommate's been torn to shreds or whatever.
Sorry, I'm introducing a whole new movie, everybody. This is
there you go. Not even a horror movie, although that is an urban legend. But the that whole story is a frequent campfire tale. The roommate comes in. It's really late at night. It's really dark. She can't really hear anything other than like what sounds like, squishy noises. Maybe she's eating. Maybe she's doing. I don't know what she's doing.
Shunting.
I'm just going to go to bed. She's shunting, clearly. Yep. And if she turned on the light, she would have seen her mother, her like a judge, some random rich couple. Like all of them would have been just one big massive blob.
So when she wakes up the next day, there's the one person is left unalived, as they say, as the kids say, and it says in bright blood on the wall. Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? So.
Absolutely. There is an interesting aspect that I've read about as well when talking about the group of society elites, and specifically David as a character, because David is Jewish. Billy, you could say he's different because there is that queer element, but there's also he's adopted, and adopted means he's not blood, he's not like us. And same thing with David.
And I think that's also I don't think there's a single person of color in this movie. As much as the 80s is the 80s, I still think that was probably a conscious choice on the part of the filmmakers to do that. Because, again, it's another, much with David being Jewish, this is a commentary on the people who are living in this society and everything. So.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been able to sort of keep out whoever they feel is undesirable and only let in what they're going to consume.
Mm-hmm.
And, Billy's been more or less groomed for consumption is all he exists for. There's a lot of economic commentary here. There's a lot of, general social commentary here. And the elite feed off of the less fortunate, and class division continues unabated.
And unfortunately, the ending doesn't end with the elite being stopped.
No, they're going to continue on. They've lost their meal for the week, I guess, and Clarissa's gone off. So they're still where they are. One thing I did want to bring up real quick because I thought it was very interesting, but the music in this, the song "Society" that's being sung, and it's by Helen Moore is the voice who's singing this. The tune itself is based on the Eton boating song from Eton College in the UK, so an extremely elite school. So it's that tune itself kind of lends the idea of like the most the upper of the crustiest uppers, I guess. But the fact that the lyrics have been rewritten for this film in just sort of saying like, oh yeah, you've got to, you're wealthy, you're high above everyone else, you've got to basically eat those who are less than you. And that's kind of what you're hearing here in this sort of really haunting, bizarre song that's played at the end. And there's like a few peppered moments here and there, but getting to hear the entire thing with the closing credits, you're like, oh,
That's also a lovely moment. Yes. No, I agree.
yeah,
And because again, society is going to continue, and that song is not incorrect. It's incorrect in the sense of we shouldn't have this, but it's correct in the sense of like the movies, nobody lost.
yeah.
So.
It's sure Billy got away.
But where's he going to go? Because he still has to live in society. So.
Yeah, exactly. They used EMTs, they used police officers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, there's plenty of people who work for society and are more than happy to lend their abilities there. Yeah, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s version,
Mm-hmm.
where, the few people who make it out, they're just trying to survive, but there's no hope. Everything's going to be consumed at some point by the invasive species. But in this case, it's not an invasive species. It is a parallel species to humans, and they've just been using humans as cattle this entire time. So I guess there's maybe like a vampire corollary there as well.
There's also sort of like a parasitic feature to it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, essentially, what are the elites but parasites?
They are parasites on society. They contribute nothing of value and yet extract as much value as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And because they look just like us, you can't really tell. But I guess if you just imagine every extremely rich person as some kind of shape-shifting goop monster, then I guess,
I mean, that's what I think of when I see them, so.
Yeah. The Kardashians, shape-shifting goop monsters. You heard it here first.
I mean, based on season 1 of their show to now, I think that's true, so.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Like, they do not resemble what they used to look like, so.
They look very different, very different. No, so let's see. Is there something going on here? Now, see, if they were very smart, they would actually think of a way to revive this movie and use themselves as that and do some sort of fun parody aspect, because that would be really good for their brand to poke fun at themselves that way. So, Mama Jenner, if you want to listen to me, exactly. I'll take a cut of this idea, thank you.
Absolutely. Copyright. This movie it's an experience. I love recommending this movie to people.
Mm-hmm.
Not, thematically it's pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah.
Visually,
it's just a heck of a ride. It's just so much fun.
A ride.
There's a lot of people who love horror who haven't watched this movie. I've noticed.
Yeah.
I've talked to, and for whatever reason, this is a movie that gets like skipped over, and this is a really solid piece of 80s horror. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that it wasn't available for so long, and it didn't get the kind of hype that sometimes happens early on especially for cult films, because it didn't get a lot of chances.
You and I were talking because we both wanted to watch this before we talked about it, and it's actually really hard to find right now streaming anywhere. It's not on any of the normal places you would find it. I had to go to Plex, and I've never used Plex before, so I had to go and download Plex.
Yeah, Plex. That's how I was able to watch it. But I've seen it before when it was streaming. It's been streaming on Shudder. It's been streaming on
Prime. I saw it on Prime.
Prime, yes,
it was
absolutely.
on Prime at one point. So
I think that's where I saw it first too. I was able to watch it because this is relatively new for me. Like I saw it, I think first in maybe 2022, 2023. Like that was like the first time I'd ever seen it.
That's about when I saw it too. So
yeah. Because again, this didn't make the rounds on TV. It didn't get the HBO treatment. It didn't get the USA Up All Night treatment. It didn't even get the MST3K treatment. Like it just, it was for those who knew and who took a chance on that video cassette.
And it's so interesting because, like I said, it was always in the back of my mind. It was always like there on the periphery. Like I know that box. I saw that box art, but I never watched it and I never thought about it. And then I'm like, you know what? For whatever reason, I was like, tonight's the night. I'm going to put this on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody, if you haven't watched the movie and you like what we've talked about, go and watch it, please. So
Absolutely. You've just listened to another episode of the Bear Cave of Terror. And if you haven't seen Society from 1989, or after listening to us are struck with an irresistible compulsion to watch it again. Sadly, it does not appear to be streaming free in most places at the moment, but you might be able to find it on Plex, and potentially it will cycle its way back to Prime or Tubi or Pluto or any one of those other streaming services. It should be available on Shudder if you do have a subscription there. If you can find it on physical media, absolutely check it out. Pick it up if you find it. Go for it. And Josh, if listeners would like to get in touch, how would they do that?
There are so many ways you can find me if you want to. So listen up, everybody. If you want to find me on Instagram or on TikTok, it's at Sidekick Productions. If you want to find me on YouTube or Patreon, it's Sidekick Productions as well. If you want to find me on Blue Sky, it's Joshua R Pangborn.sidekickproductions.org. And if you want to watch anything that we make, we've got a lot of short films and TV series on YouTube at youtube.com/sidekickproductions. Or you can watch one of my feature films, The Brooklyn Butcher, streaming now on Amazon Prime, or go to my website and you can pick up the Blu-ray because we love physical media.
Yay, physical media.
Yay. And stay tuned because later this year, hopefully in the next few months, my other feature film, A Taste of Youth, will be finally streaming. And next year, you'll be able to see The Contract, which is my third feature film.
That's so exciting. That's so cool.
I'm excited. If you like gothic erotic horror films, well, The Contract is definitely for you. But if you want a nice horror anthology, The Brooklyn Butcher is a love letter to horror with every different story being a different subgenre of horror. So check it out.
You can check out Bear Cave of Terror, all one word, on Blue Sky or Instagram, or send an email to bearcaveofterror@gmail.com. And of course, a list of sources, as usual, will be available in the show notes. But in any case, shunting is not for the faint of heart or humans, unless that's your gooey-gooey kink. Good night, everybody.
Well, son, I guess you're right. I am a butthead. Hey, Bill.